Hi everyone, welcome back. My name's Rachel Akers and I am here to show you how to do different wire wrapping techniques. I hope you've been enjoying my videos. Today what I want to show you is how to make a wire rose, and the reason for that is because it's quite a versatile thing and it looks really pretty and you can make all sorts of things out of it. So what I wanted to do is first of all show you the rose pendant. So I'm going to show you how to create this rose and how to then turn it into a pendant. But what you can also do is leave extra wire and turn it into a ring, and we can create really tiny smaller roses here that I've created, and I've turned it into a pair of earrings as well. So there's all sorts of things that you can make out of them, and what I've done is I've actually done some little leaves to go with my roses, which there is another tutorial on how to make the leaves as well, and then you can combine them all together. So it's a really fun project. And I'll just bring these ones in just to show you some different colours, but these are 3 little pendants that I created using this technique, and it's a really quite a simple one once you get the hang of it. Some people do these roses slightly differently, and they kind of create this long thread, but they go in and out and in and out, and it's really quite a complicated process, and I don't think you need to do that. So as you can see, you can create really pretty roses without having to do that. So I'm going to show you this technique and I hope you enjoy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off as usual. If you've watched some of my tutorials before, I always seem to use the same kind of wire, but we have our 20 gauge, which I use for the main structure, and then I use my 26 gauge for wrapping around to create the wrap. This one today I'm going to do in silver, just because I think it's a really bold, nice colour, kind of sparkles, looks really pretty. But as you've seen with what I've shown you, you can do them in all sorts of different colours, however you like. So because we're doing a big twist around once we've made this weave, we actually need quite a long strip. You can make them in all sorts of sizes. I've actually done them as a proper kind of rose size, which I don't think you'd wear, but you can use as a sculptural piece, or as a table piece or something like that. You can make them in all sorts of sizes. So what I make sure of is that I've got enough wire to create the rose, and then I've got a little bit left over to do the bail at the top to turn this into a pendant. If you want to make the earrings or you want to make the ring, you obviously need to leave a little bit of extra wire just to give you that leeway there to create the extra bands and things, if that's what you need. So I've got quite a long piece here, and I start a little way in, probably about 1 inch or 2 in, so that I've got a little bit left over on the edge, and then bring in my 26 gauge wire. With this one, I only use my cutters to cut the wire, and then probably a little pair of pliers at the end just to kind of twist and finish off, but generally I use my hands with this one. Now this wire is flinging off the roll, which we find it can do sometimes. So I just have to tuck it in just to make sure it doesn't keep rolling off, because that's how you can get into a tangle and then you get knots in your wire and it all breaks off. It's just flipped off again. So clearly didn't actually wrap it around tight enough. So you don't want it all flinging off the roll, because that's how you get little kinks and knots, and then it's more likely to break. So I just kind of bend it over a little bit around the top. And then keep doing that and releasing a little bit more wire each time whenever I need it. So as I said, we're going to leave a little bit of wire at the end, probably a couple of inches, and then we're going to start our weave. So we are going to just wrap a couple of times around the bottom here, like so, around the 2 wires. All in a tangle. I'm going to try and just straighten this out a little bit because it's a bit kinked and it gets a little bit annoying. And what we want to do is we want to start off by doing our figure of 8 weave. So we're going to go in, and it'll start off thin. What we want to do is taper it out and then pick a kind of size that you want and stick with it all the way along. So it'll start off with just a little bit of a taper, and then it'll go to the shape that we want it to So generally when I'm doing this, I do 2 wraps around the one wire, and then I go over the other side and I do 2 wraps around the other wire. And I just continue to do that all the way along. But to start with, as I said, we're going to start off thin and then we're going to go out to the desired size. So this is quite time consuming, and it is just literally just 1 wrap all the way along. So what I'll probably do is pop a timestamp in there for you, because once you get the idea and you know what you're doing, it's just really a matter of keeping going until you get the length that you need, and then how to actually wrap the rose at the end. So as you can see, I'm starting to kind of bring this out a little bit because I want it to be a specific size in a little while, but this bit will form the kind of central part of your rose, so you don't need to worry too much about what that looks like because you won't really see it. So as I'm weaving, I'm just making sure that I'm pulling them apart rather than together, because I want this to go further out as we go along. If you want to make a really tiny rose, you probably just want it to be about this thick, and then you just keep going about like that. But I want mine to be just a little bit bigger, so I'm going to keep this tapering out until it's probably a couple of centimeters wide, and then I'm just going to keep going all the way along. The wire, because we need quite a long length, it is going to flick around a little bit. That's what you can hear kind of making the noises, because it is a bit unruly when you first start off. And I'm still tapering it out a little bit here, just doing this figure of 8 weave, 2 around the one wire and 2 around the other. Need a little bit more length on my wire now, so I'm just going to unravel a little bit more and make sure that I catch it again so it doesn't fly off. So I've got a little bit more wire to work with. Don't worry too much if it does get a few kinks in it, because this is the kind of thing that you're not going to notice it too much. It's only when you're wrapping kind of around the 20 gauge that you want it to look as neat as you possibly can, and that's where you're going to notice any kind of lumps and bumps and things that you don't want kind of in there. But in the central part there, if there's a few little kinks, it doesn't matter too much. So I like to pull quite tightly around the wire so that it's really neat, and I'm just about getting to the distance I want between the two, and then we're just going to go straight and steady all the way along. Not to fall off the table. Definitely an pretty easy weave, but it's just very fiddly because we've got long pieces of wire that we're working with, so it's kind of flapping around all over the place. Right, so we're nearly there. I'm going to go a little bit wider, and then just continue for quite a way. You'll find you need more than you think, because sometimes as you start to wrap, it does kind of just disappear. That's why I give myself quite a nice long strip to create this rose. Things are getting attached. Oh, my wire's just decided to attach to my pliers. That's interesting. I've not had that one happen before. Move those out of the way. Don't need those at the moment. Right, where am I? So I just keep pushing it down with my fingers because what I want is it to be quite a nice tight weave. I don't want it all spread out all the way down. I just want it quite firm. So this is probably only about a centimetre actually, I would think, centimetre and a half maybe, wide at the moment. And this is where I'm going to now continue along this kind of size. Don't worry too much if it goes in and out a little bit. It's not going to be that noticeable because when we create the rose, we actually kind of twist and turn things anyway. But just try and be as neat as you can because sometimes it can be noticeable, but it's all practice and making it look neat. So now I'm just going to continue along like this. So I would say what I want to do is probably go all the way, you can see this, all the way up here. So it's going to take me a little while to get all the way to there in that kind of same distance apart. So just bear with me whilst I get to that point. Things do like to get tangled up. These roses are really pretty and effective, but they are time consuming just doing this one weave all the way along. But you can create so many different things from it when you have created it, which is great. You do a little cluster of them as a little as a different type of pendant or anything you like, really. I think they look really nice as a ring, but they're quite big, kind of fairly large cocktail style ring, I suppose you'd say. If you like what you are watching, you enjoy watching these tutorials, please do subscribe to my channel because that is really helpful for me. And also I'd love to hear your comments. I always do try to answer. If you hit the like button, that would be great too. And as I've said before in a few of my other tutorials, if there's anything you want to learn, if there's anything you think would be helpful, then please do send me a message and I will do my best to film something for you that will teach you how to do it. So as you can see, we've not got that far along yet, so we're just going to keep going. It's a noisy one, this, because the long wires keep getting in the way. So you can see now that I'm kind of consistently keeping it the same distance apart. And that's what we want, basically, all the way along. And we will taper it off again at the end. But for now, I'm just going to keep going. Release a bit more wire again. attempt to keep these wires straight, but it doesn't really matter too much. It's flying all over the place at the moment. Be careful of your eyes. Some people might wear goggles. Probably a good idea. Oh, it's a really fiddly one. And it gets all, you're trying to be fast, but then you get in a tangle. So take your time if you're new to doing it, so that you can make it as neat as you can. Yeah, now that you can see basically what we're doing, we will timestamp this so that you can jump over to the next bit that you need. Every now and then as you weave, just make sure you're staying the same distance apart and pushing it down so that it's nice and tight. That's what I'll keep doing periodically. I feel like I should be like a radio host now, just chatting to myself whilst I'm doing this. Otherwise it's just silent. But all good. As long as you can see what I'm doing. I guess it doesn't matter at all. So I'd say we're probably only about a quarter of the way along now, because we need to have quite a long strip of this to actually create the rose. So it is definitely a time-consuming piece. You can see how the reason I love using the silver, so it's got this lovely shimmer to it. So when you create this rose, it does look, I mean, it looks great in the other colours too, but I just think silver really stands out a bit. Now this is obviously silver plated wire. You can use sterling silver, but it is quite expensive. So I'd always recommend that you practice. You might get a client that wants sterling silver, and that's absolutely fine, because you can charge them for, you know, using that type of wire. Some people are allergic to certain copper coated wires, but I've got quite sensitive skin and I seem to be fine with these. So I think that they're really good. I buy tarnish resistant wire. Because generally I don't do a patina, or if you've heard of loss, which is liver of sulfur. Those are things that you can use on bare copper, which then give it an antique-y kind of look. But I generally use wire that you don't have to do that with, but you can experiment. You can buy bare wire and you can experiment with it, and you can put it in the liver of sulfur, and you can patina it, and you can do all sorts of things to it. But this is good for really keeping that shine and bold kind of bright colour if you buy non-tarnish. So it's a little tip for you there. Just gonna keep going. As I said before, we're getting in a tangle, but this is a fiddly one because we've got long pieces of wire to work with. Just be careful that you don't flick yourself in the face. I have cuts all over my hands from the wire kind of attacking me, but I don't want them on my face, so you know, protect your eyes. So just keep checking occasionally that I'm not pulling it in too far or making it go further out. It's fairly straight. You know, there's a tiny little wiggle in it there, but because we're bending it afterwards, it really doesn't matter too much. I'm trying to speed up a bit so that we can get to the end. Taking a super duper long time. There is a video that I could make a connection with that will show you how to do different types of bails, but I'll show you one today that I might use for this. It's continuing with the figure of 8 really, to create the pendant, and you can use different types of weave to create your ring or whatever it is that you want to create. Ugh. Apologies for my computer, it's decided to start making lots of noises. Don't know why it's doing that, it doesn't normally. I will look into that for next time. Right, progress. Slow progress, but we're getting there. The way I hold it, it's probably quite hard for you to see what I'm doing, but it's easier for me to hold it quite close and do my weaves here than it is for me to hold it back here, because obviously you don't get as much control. So that's why I try to stop and show you what I'm doing. But it really is just as simple as two wraps around one and 2 wraps around the other. Don't worry too much if your wire breaks. You can, with this, it's quite forgiving. You can just start again. And tuck the wires behind each other. I mean, mine hasn't broken, but I'm just explaining to you, like, if it does. Sometimes you can get a kink in the wire with no fault of your own, and it may snap, and then you're going to have to try and reconnect it somehow. When you're doing other wraps, it can be quite obvious, whereas this one, it's not going to matter too much. You can just start wrapping again from where you left off, and hopefully it won't be too obvious. Won't be too much of a problem. I'm just going to keep on going. So I'd say we might be about a third of the way there. I think we need to keep going on this because, yeah, it's probably about a third of the way. There's you need quite a bit of wrapping for this. Make sure I stay straight. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okay, so you get the idea of what we need to do. So I've gone probably about a third of the way along now, and we do need to keep going all the way along to probably about here. So it's quite a long way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop now and come back to you to show you how to wrap the rose once I have got that far. So see you in a minute. Right, so I have done pretty much as far as I need to go. I measured it for you just to give you an idea of how long you need it to be. This is approximately 26 centimetres. You can go a little bit longer. As we weave it, as we actually turn it into a rose, you might find that you want to go a little bit shorter. It's up to you. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finish off by tapering it back down again so that it kind of matches this end here. And then I will show you how to turn it into a rose. So all we do when we're finishing and trying to pull it back together again is just pull a little bit harder each time. And what will happen is it'll just start to come back in on itself. So that's what we're doing, is we're making sure this time, rather than trying to keep it all at about the same distance apart, we actually want it to start coming back in. But we don't want to do it too quickly. We don't want to suddenly just go zoop and like pull it really hard and bring it back in. We want to just taper it back in nice and slowly, because then it gives you quite a nice even finish. Because although this bit isn't actually going to be seen in the rose itself, it still needs to be neat and flat, so it's not going to cause any problems. So as you can see, I'm just slowly pulling each side back in again. Doesn't matter if it tapers a little bit more quickly than the other end, because as I said, it's going to be at the back anyway. But I'm just slowly pulling these wires back together. So we're going to taper it all the way back. And almost there. Now what I normally do is leave the silver wire, leave your 26 gauge wire attached, because whatever you're going to do afterwards, whether you're going to turn it into a pendant or whether you're going to make it into a ring, you want that extra, this 26 gauge wire, you want this extra just left on, so that then you can finish off. So don't cut it off until you know what you're going to do with it. So I'm going to leave it. I'm not actually going to finish this one off for you, because what I'm doing here is showing you how to create the rose so that you can then create whatever you like from it. There will be a link at the end to how to create 3 different types of bails. So with that link, you will be able to finish it off into a pendant if you want to. To make a pair of earrings, there is a tutorial on a pair of leaf earrings. If you wanted to add a rose to it, that will show you how to finish it off into a pair of earrings. I will be doing a tutorial on a ring, so look out for that one. But so as you can see, tapered back down, so it's similar either end. And I'm going to leave this attached because I'm not sure just yet what I want to make it into. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into our rose. So we start off by doing a little twist so that this forms the stem of your rose. So it's just twisted it over like this. Now, as I was saying before, some people go in and out and in and out and in and out with their weave, which takes a really long time, because that kind of creates the petals, and then you can just wrap it round and round and round. But the way that I do this is I actually twist the wire as I go, and that's what creates the kind of this undulating pattern, which actually looks like petals and turns it into this rose, you see. So it's just a slightly different way of doing it. But as I go, I'm now going to just gently twist it around. This forms the central part of our rose. So as you can see, as I'm pulling it, I'm twisting it up at the same time. So I'm turning it around. Don't know if you can see how I'm doing that. So as I pull, I twist at the same time. So I've created that central part of the rose. Now this part I want to be a little bit straighter so I don't twist, and that creates one petal. Now I'm going to start twisting again. Little bit complicated. You'll be able to see how it forms as you're twisting it. You can see this is starting to form this rose. You don't need to worry too much. I want that twisting up and back on itself. Then this bit I'm going to keep straight, so move along a little bit, and then I'm going to do another twist. So I'm literally just pushing it and twisting it all the way over. So I'm making it twist all the way over. Now again, leave that bit straight, do another twist all the way so that it actually keeps turning up and over itself. Now as you can see, that creates quite a nice size rose for a ring or a little pendant. I'm making a slightly bigger one, so actually you could stop at say 20 centimeters and you've got this lovely dainty rose. But I'm going to keep going with the strip that I've got and make an even bigger one. Now another thing you can do as well is you can create even bigger roses, as in wider, bigger leaves, by just making this pattern here that we've got wider. So you could do it double this size and you'd have a really big rose. You could do it half this size and have a really little tiny one. So it's totally up to you. And all I do is I just keep leaving a little strip flat and then giving the next bit a twist, so it literally doubles back on itself. And as you can see, we're creating this really lovely rose pattern, twisting it under itself again. This is going to make a lovely sized rose, this one. And then another twist, and I've got to the end. And what I want to do with this is just pull it right underneath, twist it around the other central piece that we were using, so you can see this other side. And now this one actually could make a perfect ring, because I've got enough here to go this way and this way to create this ring. But that would be a massive cocktail ring, wouldn't it? But I think that'd be quite cool actually. So that bit, if you look, you can readjust, you can twist it around a little bit so that the leaves and the petals form the way you want it. But there you've got this beautiful rose shape. And what you would do with this to finish it off as a pendant, you can, as you can see, I've still got my 26 gauge wire attached, so I could actually turn this bit here into the bail, and I could make that bit into a bail and twist it over, and then you've got it hanging. This bit you could just chop off, and as I said before, these two sides could create a beautiful ring. I might actually turn this one into a ring. Very excited about that. And if I bring this back in for you, you can see I've made tiny little roses here where I've created my earring piece. So that is how you create a beautiful wire rose. So obviously the time consuming bit is that really long weave. You can make it as long or as short as you like, but I'd say no shorter than maybe 15 to 20 centimeters, because you're not going to have enough to create enough of a rose. But as this one was 26, you can see what beautiful size that has created. And as I said, I think I am actually going to turn that into a rather funky cocktail ring. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please do subscribe to my channel if you like what you see, and I'll catch you again next time with another wire wrapping tutorial. Bye for now.